Last night, her words caught me off guard. They slipped into the silence between us, low and steady, as if she hadn't planned to say them at all. Don't go home yet. She didn't look at me when she said it. She was by the window, fingers grazing the edge of the curtain, her profile softened by the dim lamp behind her. The room smelled faintly of rain from the open pane, damp air carrying the warmth of her perfume. I stood there, frozen in the space she'd just pulled me into, one where leaving no longer felt like an option. I should have answered immediately, something casual, something safe. But instead, the words that rose in me tasted different. Heavier. Too bare to be spoken without consequence. Then keep me here forever. It was out before I could stop it, and the moment it left my mouth, the air thickened. She turned slowly, the curtain slipping from her fingers. Her eyes, God, they were steady, almost unreadable, but not cold. I couldn't tell if she wanted to laugh, to scold, or to step closer. She just let the silence expand between us, and in that silence, I felt every unspoken thing I'd been carrying about her. She was older, grace written in the lines of her face, a kind of lived-in beauty that didn't need to be chased. There was something in the way she moved, careful yet unhurried, that made every gesture feel deliberate. Even the way she adjusted the sleeve of her blouse seemed charged, like she knew I was watching. And I was. I always was. I shifted my weight, suddenly aware of the ridiculousness of my own presence. My hand brushed against the edge of her counter, fingers drumming without rhythm. I wanted to say more, to bridge the gap, but I couldn't find anything that wouldn't sound smaller than what I already said. She closed the space for me. Not all the way. Just a step, maybe two. Enough that I caught the faint warmth of her skin, the hush of fabric as she moved. Her hand brushed mine lightly, so light I could almost convince myself it hadn't happened. But it had. My hand trembled, and I curled it into a fist, hoping she didn't notice. Her lips parted like she wanted to speak, but instead, she looked down at my hand. A pause. Then she looked back up, holding my gaze longer than she should have. I felt it burn right through me. You shouldn't say things like that, she whispered finally. Her voice wasn't scolding. It was softer, almost tired, but edged with something else. A warning? A plea? I couldn't tell. I meant it. I said before I had the sense to hold the words back. She exhaled, a slow, careful release of air, and I thought for a second she might smile. Instead, she reached past me to set her glass down on the counter, her arm brushing my chest as she did. The contact was fleeting, nothing intentional, but it left my pulse unsteady. The room felt too quiet now. The rain outside had softened, and the ticking of the kitchen clock filled the silence. She didn't move away immediately. She lingered just close enough that I could feel the faint heat radiating from her skin. I swallowed hard. And then, the sound of a door unlocking echoed down the hall. Her eyes darted toward the noise. Mine followed. Neither of us spoke. But in that suspended second, I knew we'd crossed something invisible, something that couldn't be undone. The sound of the door unlocking faded into nothing. No one entered. Just the empty hush of the hall again. She let out a breath I didn't realize she'd been holding, and the tension slipped back into the room like it never left. But something in her eyes had shifted. Guarded now. She moved away, back to the window, her hands folded in front of her as if she needed something to hold on to. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The rain tapped lightly on the glass, a rhythm too gentle to break the silence. You shouldn't get attached so easily, she said finally, her voice softer than before, but carrying a weight I hadn't heard until now. It wasn't the first time she tried to keep me at a distance. I'd felt it in the pauses, in the way she sometimes looked at me too long, and then turned away as if caught in something she didn't want to admit. Her loneliness hung around her like perfume, faint, elusive, but undeniable. I'd heard hints of it before, in half-finished sentences, in the way she spoke of before without explaining. A marriage that ended badly, I'd pieced together. Someone who left. And in the wreckage, she built walls she thought no one could see through. But I saw them. And worse, I wanted to climb them. I stepped closer, leaning against the counter, pretending not to study her too openly. But my eyes betrayed me. The faint curve of her neck as she tilted her head, the delicate way her fingers traced the glass edge of the window frame. It all burned into me. And she noticed. You look at me like that, she said quietly, almost accusing. Her reflection in the glass caught my eyes. Do you know how dangerous that is? I didn't answer. Maybe I couldn't. Instead, I reached out, brushing my hand along her shoulder, too light to be anything more than an accident. But it wasn't. We both knew it. Her breath hitched, subtle but there. She didn't step away. For a second, her hand lifted as though to rest against mine. Then she stopped herself, fingers curling inward, pulling back before contact was made. The hesitation cut deeper than if she'd pushed me away outright. "I'm twice your age," she said finally, her voice low, controlled, but threaded with something raw. "People would laugh. Or worse." "I don't care," I said. The words came out too quickly, too bare. Her eyes met mine in the reflection. Steady, searching. She didn't smile, didn't argue. She just studied me like she wanted to believe me, but didn't know if she could. Then she turned, slowly, deliberately. We were too close now. Her breath brushed my cheek when she spoke again, just one word. "Careful." The warning didn't match the way she stayed there, inches from me. It didn't match the way her eyes flicked down, then back up, as if she was measuring how long she could resist. And when her fingers finally grazed mine, just a whisper of contact. It felt less like an accident and more like a promise neither of us were ready to name. The rain had stopped, but the air inside was thicker than ever. Her hand still lingered near mine on the counter. Neither of us spoke. Every second stretched too long, every breath too loud. And then, her phone lit up on the table. The vibration snapped us both out of it. She pulled her hand back quickly, almost guilty, and crossed the room to check the screen. I stayed frozen, pulse hammering, watching the glow of the message reflect across her face. She didn't open it, just stared for a moment, jaw tight. Then she flipped it face down, as though silencing something more dangerous than just a text. "You should go," she said. Too fast, too sharp. I stepped forward. "Do you want me to?" Her lips parted, but no words came. She looked away, arms folding across her chest. The answer wasn't no. Silence pressed between us. I moved closer. Close enough to feel the faint warmth radiating from her. Close enough that if either of us leaned just an inch more, the distance would break. Her breath trembled in the air, brushing against me like a secret she couldn't hold. "You don't understand," she whispered, almost to herself. "This isn't just us. People notice. They talk." I swallowed, forcing myself to keep my voice steady. "Then let them talk." Her eyes flicked up to mine, startled, not by the words, but by how much I meant them. She shook her head, a faint laugh escaping, bitter and soft. "You make it sound so easy." "It feels easy when I'm here," I said. Her gaze softened, just for a second. She reached up as though to brush something from my collar, her fingers hesitating midair. When they finally touched, light and tentative, the contact sent a shiver straight through me. And then, knuckles against the door. Both our heads snapped toward the sound. A muffled voice called her name, casual, unsuspecting. A neighbor? A friend? Whoever it was, they were too close, too real. She stiffened, hand still on my shirt, but she didn't push me away. We both stood motionless, caught in the fragile balance of wanting and fearing. The knocking stopped. Silence again. Her hand slipped down, brushing against mine before falling away. Her voice was low, breaking slightly. "Do you see now? This is why." I leaned in, reckless. "It doesn't scare me." Her breath hitched. For one impossible second, our lips hovered too near, heat and gravity pulling us forward. But she turned her head at the last instant, exhaling a shaky laugh that wasn't really laughter at all. "You're impossible." I stayed close, refusing to retreat, close enough to see the flicker of conflict in her eyes. And when she finally looked at me again, there was no distance left. The knock on the door had faded hours ago, but its echo still clung to the room. She hadn't asked me to leave again. That silence between us was its own permission. She poured another glass of wine but didn't drink it, just held it, the stem trembling slightly between her fingers. I leaned against the counter, watching the way the lamplight curved across her cheekbones. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Finally, I broke. "Why do you keep pulling me close if you're only going to push me away?" Her head snapped toward me. Eyes sharp, too sharp. "Because I don't know what's worse. Wanting you, or letting myself have you." The words landed between us like a confession and a wound at once. She froze afterward, as though realizing she'd said too much. But there was no pulling it back now. I stepped closer, slow, deliberate. She didn't retreat. "You think I don't feel it too?" My voice was low, almost rough. She set the glass down, carefully, as though her hands couldn't be trusted. You're too young. You don't understand what this costs. I understand enough. I reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. My fingers lingered against her temple, featherlight. She closed her eyes for a moment, just breathing, like that touch was too much and not enough at the same time. When she opened them again, her gaze burned straight through me. You'll regret this. Then let me regret it with you. The silence that followed was unbearable. She leaned back against the counter, her shoulders brushing mine as though surrendering to gravity itself. I could feel her warmth, the faint shiver in her breath. I bent closer, lips hovering near her ear. Tell me to stop, and I will. Her jaw tightened, but no words came. Instead, she turned, sudden and sharp, facing me fully. Our noses almost touched, her breath quick and uneven against my skin. Her hand came up, hesitated, then pressed flat against my chest, light, trembling. I hate how much I want this, she whispered. I caught her hand, holding it against me. Then don't hate it. Her eyes flicked down to my mouth, just for a second. Enough to undo me. The room seemed to shrink, everything pulling us into the small space between heartbeats. My lips hovered so close to hers that even breathing felt like crossing a line. And then, the sound of footsteps in the hallway outside. Slow, pausing by her door. We both froze, caught on the knife's edge. Her hand tightened against my chest, nails grazing faintly through my shirt. My pulse hammered beneath her palm. One more second, one more inch, and everything would break. The footsteps faded, but neither of us moved. We stayed locked in that charged stillness, her hand pressed flat against my chest, my face hovering too close to hers. Every second stretched longer, sharper. And then, she pulled back, suddenly, like something had snapped. She crossed the room, her movements sharp now, unsettled. She grabbed her phone off the counter, thumb brushing the screen. It lit up again. A string of unread messages. One name repeated. I recognized it. Her ex-husband. The realization punched through me. How many times had his name sat there, unanswered, while I stood inches from her? She didn't open the texts, but she didn't hide them, either. Just stared at the glow like it burned her. He's been calling me for weeks, she said, voice low, strained. I didn't tell you. I swallowed, unsure if I had the right to ask the question rising in me. But it came anyway. Why not? Her jaw tightened. Because this, she gestured between us, sharp, helpless, is already too much. And if he knew, she trailed off. But I understood. If he knew, he'd use it. Twist it. Turn me into proof of everything he ever accused her of. For the first time, I felt something hot, unexpected, beneath my longing. Not just desire. Jealousy. He doesn't get to own you anymore, I said, my voice harder than I meant. She turned then, meeting my eyes, startled by the edge in me. You think it's that simple? You think you can just stand there and make it all disappear? I stepped forward, closing the distance again. I don't care about him. I care about you. Her breath caught. For a moment, I thought she might laugh, dismiss me. But she didn't. She trembled, just slightly, the glass in her hand shaking before she set it down. You shouldn't say that, she whispered. But her body betrayed her. She didn't move when I brushed past her to take the glass away, setting it safely aside. She didn't move when my hand lingered on her wrist a second too long. Her pulse thudded beneath my fingers. You shouldn't let me get this close, either, I murmured. She closed her eyes, as if the truth of it hurt. I know. And yet, when she opened them again, her gaze locked on mine, raw and unguarded. If we do this, there's no undoing it. I leaned in, voice low, steady. Then stop me now. Her silence was louder than any answer. Her hand lifted, not to push me away, but to rest against my jaw, hesitant, trembling, but there. And in that fragile, irreversible moment, the decision was made. Her hand against my jaw lingered, trembling, but she didn't pull away. I leaned into her touch, not too much, just enough to show I wasn't afraid of it. Her eyes searched mine, wide, unsteady, as though she was standing on the edge of something she couldn't see the bottom of. You should leave, she whispered. But her voice broke halfway through. Do you want me to? The question hung there, brutal in its simplicity. Her lips parted. No sound came. She shook her head, faint, almost invisible. I stepped closer. Inches vanished. The air thickened between us, warm and electric. our breaths colliding in the small space that separated want from surrender. My heart pounded so hard it felt like she must hear it beneath her palm. "Say it," I murmured. Her lashes lowered, her chest rising and falling unevenly. "If I say it, I can't take it back." "Neither can I." For a heartbeat, the world stilled. Then she leaned in. Not all the way, just enough that her forehead brushed mine, just enough that her breath washed against my lips. The smallest contact, but it shattered something inside me. Her voice was low, raw. "You make me feel like I'm alive again." That was it. The breaking point. I caught her hand where it still rested against my chest, pressing it harder to the rapid thud of my heartbeat. "Then don't run from it." Her lips finally met mine, soft at first, almost hesitant, as if testing the ground beneath us. But then the hesitation burned away, replaced by something fiercer, hungrier, that had been waiting too long. Her fingers tangled in my shirt, pulling me closer. Mine slid to the small of her back, anchoring her against me. It wasn't neat, it wasn't careful, it was desperate, messy, the kind of kiss that came from all the words we never said, all the nights we'd almost touched but hadn't. When she finally pulled back, we were both breathless. Her eyes were wet, shining in the low light, but steady on mine. "This is dangerous," she whispered. "I know." Her thumb brushed my cheek, tender, almost disbelieving. "And yet I can't stop." "Neither can I." For the first time, there was no wall left between us. No excuses, no hesitations. Just the truth, raw and undeniable. We wanted this, and we had chosen it. She leaned her head against my shoulder, her body softening into mine. The storm outside had passed, but in here, it felt like something had only just begun. And in that quiet, tangled closeness, we both understood. Whatever came next, we were in it together. We stayed like that for a long time, her leaning against me, my arms wrapped around her as though I could keep the world outside from ever finding us. The storm had moved on, leaving only a damp quiet, the kind that makes you notice the sound of your own breathing. She pulled back just enough to look at me. Her hand stayed on my chest, steady now, no trembling. "This isn't what I planned," she murmured, eyes soft but searching. "Neither did I admitted. "But I don't want to undo it." She gave a small, almost incredulous laugh, the kind that slipped out before she could stop it. "You're too young to know what you want." I shook my head. "No, I'm just young enough not to be afraid of it." That made her pause. Her lips pressed together, her gaze studying me the way she always did when she was trying to decide if I was real or just reckless. But then, slowly, she nodded. "I've spent years building walls," she said quietly. "Years convincing myself I was safer alone, that no one could really see me again." I reached for her hand, lacing my fingers with hers. "And now," her grip tightened, strong, certain. "Now you terrify me. But you make me feel like myself again." I smiled, leaning closer until our foreheads touched, until her breath mingled with mine. "Then let me keep doing that." She closed her eyes, exhaling, her body softening into mine. It wasn't a surrender, it was trust, fragile but whole. We didn't rush it. There was no need. The kiss that followed was slower than before, lingering, deliberate. Not messy, not desperate. This one was different. It was the kind of kiss that felt like a beginning, not just a breaking point. When we pulled apart, she rested her head against my shoulder again. My thumb traced lazy circles over the back of her hand, our fingers still intertwined. She didn't let go. "You know this won't be easy," she whispered. "Nothing real ever is," I replied. And for the first time, she didn't argue. She just let the silence settle, warm and full, the kind that didn't need words. We sat there together, close enough that I could feel every rise and fall of her breath. No more hesitations, no more unfinished sentences. Just her, just me, and the quiet certainty that whatever waited outside that room, we'd already chosen each other. Sparkles, did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?